Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. GabNet needs you. Yes, GabNet needs you to call our live programs and be a part of the citizen panels. It's the most innovative talk format yet, because it's not just one caller, it's a group of callers interacting with the hosts at the same time. Here's how you do it. It's simple. First, download Skype at skype.com. To install it, answer 4 simple questions: first name, last name, email address, and your choice of ID. Then launch Skype, go to Add Contacts, type in GabNet Live, and ask to be made a contact. Then you're ready to be on the citizen panel. If you're too lazy, well, you can always call on the phone at 347-352-0079. That's 347-352-0079. For all the information and a call button for Skype, log on to gabnet.net. At the bottom of the page, you'll find a video on how to call us and how to use GabNet. It couldn't be easier. It couldn't be more fun and exciting. We're new. We're different. But we need you to call. So for crying out loud, call or we'll kill this dog. Don't worry, Fluffy. They won't let you die. I'm not kidding. Call or Fluffy gets it. Oopsie. Connect to life.
We do have several listeners online tonight who are either dealing with parents who have Alzheimer's or who have dealt with that and are now past the final stage.
Connect to love.
Hey, Dad, that was so creepy that you told Melissa that you had sex in 8 years.
Creepy. I don't know what's
and
wrong
you should.
with
It was
my
like
life.
deer in the headlight, twink. Like,
oh my God! No wonder he didn't show up to the parade afterwards. He was embarrassed.
Connect to happiness.
bumping and bumping, Linda.
Dude, you really
Holy
were.
cow.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to do that.
Yes.
There we
To
go.
blow it out sometimes.
Yeah. Like a Brazilian blowout was the Cuban blowout going on over here. That's going to put it out there for you people.
Connect with Connections, a nightly feature of GabNet. Join hosts Melissa Fox, Linda Nunez, Porn Star Pete, abetted by Lizzie Say What, and Mr. Punchline as they engage in a lively 2-hour romp that is bound to keep you happy and, yes, connected. Each show tackles a lifestyle or relationship topic relevant to people interested in improving themselves, dealing with the ups and downs of life, and those interested in spicing up their relationships. The gang, along with special guest hosts, share stories and connect the topics with humor to current events in entertainment, politics, culture, and even sports. So get connected, Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern and Tuesday through Friday at 1 a.m. It's Connections, here on GabNet. Talk like you've never heard it before. Reasons why you tune into GabNet. Here's reason number 9. Great celebrity guests.
So how many years is this now with Teller?
43, and that's 43 continuous. You can try to say Keith Richards and Mick Jagger go longer, but they take 3, 4, 5 years off. You know, even when they're together, they take the time off. Continuous, you know, no more than 2 weeks working apart, I think.
Wow. And
Like being waterboarded for 43 years.
GabNet. Reasons to listen every day. Log on to gabnet.net for more. GabNet. It's talk like you've never heard it before. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
hello, everybody. How are you? I'm Alex Bennett. This is the Ramble. Let me turn the music down. It's a little loud. The music's too loud. That music is too loud. That's it. Anyway, how are you? Got a lot to talk about later tonight, so please stay tuned for the citizen panel over most of this same GabNet because it's going to be pretty radioactive tonight. In the meantime, we want to talk to somebody we love talking to, And, well, let me introduce her. Look who's with us once again, ladies and gentlemen. Ex-wives. That's Ronnie Bennett.
What are those reality shows? Something about the wives of some city?
Oh, yeah. The wives of...
What's the title?
I don't know. The Real Housewives of...
Real Housewives.
Yeah.
Okay, so... what can we make ex-wives? Real ex-wives.
You know what's terrible? What's terrible, if I can mention it quickly here, about that term, the Real Housewives of this or the Real Housewives of that. Isn't that an antiquated term? I mean,
what?
do women who are married and maybe stay at home and take care of the kids, do they call themselves housewives anymore? I
don't know. I have no idea. And I think it's only rich people can do that, and they probably have nannies.
Well, I mean, they call them housewives, and they're not really, the term is kind of antiquated. Wife, the wives of whatever, but housewives, that indicates a certain form of slavery.
Or I get a picture in my head of 1950s housewife with a proper apron and all dressed up and her hair done.
Yeah.
And, and cleaning the house looking like she's on her way to lunch by today's standards.
Right. So, come on, folks. Let's get with it. Housewives, I don't know, they got to come up with a better term. How about the sluts? Real sluts. Well, because all these women are just...
Don't go straight for that.
I'll go straight for that because that's the way they portray them. I don't know.
I don't know. I've never seen the shows.
I got hooked on one of them a long time ago, the Real Housewives of Los Angeles. Not anymore, but I was watching it for a while, and I found it entertaining because, in England, they don't call it reality shows. They call it scripted reality. And
just as bad.
When they're giving away an award for reality shows, they call it scripted reality.
Just as bad as not doing it.
Yeah, well, anyway. How you doing, kiddo? Everybody wants to know.
I'm getting by. You're
getting by. We were talking before we went on, and I made the mistake by saying, and I said I knew you were going to get upset by it. But
no, you didn't.
But yes, I did. I said, I know that you won't. You'll take umbrage with this. Anyway, what I said was, you said you're dying, and we know that. And I said, well, people will tell you that we're all dying, and then you got really mad at that because you say you hate to hear that.
Listen, I've been there all my life until now. I have been one of those people that some people say we are all dying. That's not true. You don't think about it that way. Every human on earth pretends that they are the one immortal until they're not anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole different thing when the medical people tell you, there's nothing more we can do. All of a sudden, for some whatever period of time that they announce, which, by the way, I don't think they know. They do their best guess, given their experience and knowledge of the subject. And, they said that if I do this chemo that I start tomorrow, that maybe 6 to 8 months before I start having symptoms of the cancer. I think that could just as well be 2 months or a year. They're doing the best they can and trying to figure that out, but every person, every human body is different and will react different to the medication. But it changes your outlook entirely. For instance, I don't know if I brought this up with you or not anymore, but I have a limited amount of time where before this, I could pretend maybe I would become one of the ancients and live to be 95.
Yeah.
And now I can't pretend that anymore. So how do I choose the books I read? And speaking of housewives of wherever, am I still allowed to watch the trashy TV shows that I like? Or is that a waste of time? I don't know how to make those decisions. There's a lot of things I would like to get all in order before I die so that the person who has to clean up behind me and my house and all of that stuff won't have too tough a time. My God, there's a lot to do. And I've done all the big stuff like the end-of-life documents, the will and the proxies and all of that. That stuff has all been done for more than a year. But all of the little stuff that she's going to have to hunt for everywhere if I don't give her a little book of here's where you find all of this. And there are things like I've known for the longest time that no big deal, make the phone calls and purchase my cremation. I can't make myself do it. I mean, I assume I will eventually, but I can't make myself pick up the phone and do that. And sometimes
a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that before death or before they know they're going to die. They already have funeral plans.
Yes, I understand that.
So
it's not new. I mean, but still, now in a new position, I'm having trouble picking up the telephone to do that.
Yeah.
More than that, I haven't even taken the time to look into it online yet. And
you know what I found? What I found interesting was your first thought when you first talked to me about this. Wasn't I got to make funeral arrangements? I got to do this. I got to do that. Your first thought was, I'll never be able to see how Trump turned out.
Yes. Oh, I am so pissed off about that. I am so pissed off. And I had been saying that for the longest, even before I knew I had cancer. Man, I've got to let me live until I see the outcome of the Trump era. I want to know how it ends, or at least, the end of him as president. It'll be many, many, many years, probably decades before we clean up behind him politically. But, man, I am pissed off about that. It's not the thing I think I should be pissed off about in this circumstance, but it is.
Well, you will always, I don't know, maybe I would think about something like, gee, I'll never get to see the next season of Doctor Who or something like that,
Yeah, well, things like that have occurred to me too.
Yeah, but let's hope all the shows you like are canceled before you go.
Right. But I still don't. It's the book problem there. Which ones to read and which ones do they all have to be serious, or can I read a detective novel?
Yeah. And the old question: how ripe should the bananas be when I buy them? Yeah.
How much what?
How ripe should the bananas be when I buy them?
Oh, well, my mother's I took care of my mother during the last 4 months of her life when she was dying.
Yeah.
And when I met with her doctor the first time after I got to her place, he told me how he had explained to her what had happened and if she did this or if she did that, but she had approximately 3 or 4 months to live. And he told me that my mother sat there for a little while looking down, and she thought about, I guess, what the doctor had been saying. And then she looked up and looked at him and said, "Are you telling me I shouldn't buy any green bananas?" Now, it's an old line, but I didn't know my mother was that funny, and especially in the circumstance.
Yeah. But, as I say, sometimes in this situation, I don't know what to say.
Nobody does. And somebody left a comment.
So the fact that you're laughing while we were talking makes me feel good that I've done something. Yeah.
Well, and one of my blog readers left a note on one of my posts about the cancer and what's going on. He said that she wanted her friends and what family was left to come and be with her and talk and talk and talk and talk about everything under the sun. And I think I crave being with people. And sometimes I don't want to say depressed. I don't think I'm depressed, but I get fearful and I get just kind of beaten down, and then I go meet a friend for lunch or have a conversation with you or even a phone conversation with someone, and I come away from it, everything's fine. Yes, I know what's happening. I haven't forgotten that, but I can handle that and I'll get on with what I have to do today. It makes all the difference. People make every kind of difference.
Yeah.
And that woman who left that note on my blog, she's absolutely right. I want to talk about everything. I want to talk about Trump. I want to talk about Pittsburgh. I want to talk about books I'm reading or how to choose a book if you've got any good ideas, and so on and so forth. Plus, I want you to let me talk about what I'm going through now and then, too. And you don't have to do much, but listen, there's no solution that you can give me. But for now and for some period of time, physically, I feel terrific. Here's a little bit of a secret about this. Because I feel so good, and I've kind of, just this week, in the last 2 or 3 days, I've started to get, that I want to live. I want to live for a lot longer, and not that I didn't ever feel that way, but I kind of accepted what had been told me. Now I'm feeling, damn, can I make this, how can I stretch this out a little longer? I'm not ready. And then I know that, and then I start thinking, what I want is, they tell me I can hold off symptoms with this chemo for a little while, and then I'll start having them. And I'm hoping that toward the end, I feel physically bad enough that I don't care anymore. That would take the fear away.
Well, it's interesting because as I say, I've always had a fear of death, and so this makes me doubly uncomfortable for that. Okay, but to hell with how I feel. It's how you feel. That's really what it's all about, But I paid attention to a lot of people who were dying and what they did with their end of life. And I found that, for instance, I think it was Ingrid Bergman, who went back to Sweden and said goodbye to everybody. And I felt that really, rather than being hit by a truck and all of a sudden one day you're alive and the next day you're dead, she had time to go back and see the people she wanted to see, or make peace with the people she wanted to make peace with, that there was, that the fact that she was dying and knew she was dying kind of became a blessing of sorts, because you can put a period on your life,
Several people, including you, have said, "Can I come visit you?" And absolutely. I mean, fortunately, I now live, not in teeny tiny Manhattan apartment anymore. I have a bedroom and a bathroom. It's almost like being in your own hotel suite. And absolutely, people who live far away. I'm not getting on an airplane. I just don't have it in me. Airplanes are just so awful to fly in anymore.
Right.
And I'm not, there was a first thought of maybe I'd go to New York. I have lots of friends there. It's the city where I really, truly belong. It is my home. But I just can't, for a number of reasons. So having a few people come here to visit for a few days, like Bergman going to Sweden, is just terrific. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. So, anyway, your doctors, have you seen them since we talked last? And if so, what have they been saying about all of this?
Everything is the same. I've got this little piece of paper here that I start this chemo tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I had asked about the chemo. The point of the chemo is it can't cure the 2 tumor locations, but it can slow the growth. So I have a longer period of asymptomatic life before cancer symptoms start kicking in.
Yeah.
And it says here, I had asked about the side effects because it's a different mixture of chemicals than I had before that did kill the cancer for a while. And they're fairly mild. I might have some flu symptoms for a couple of days. There are 2 different ones that they're giving me at a time, and some mild, quote, in quotes, nausea. And the other one, I could have a sensitivity to cold and some neuropathy. And the thing is that they don't know. Each person has a different reaction.
Right.
I could get all of these or not. They might be heavy, they might be light. But that sounds to me like tolerable stuff compared to some.
Yeah.
And I can manage that. The other big thing, change the subject.
Well, we should change the subject because life goes on, and so do you. And you're not going anywhere soon. I want to show you
something.
Okay.
When we hang up, what I am going to do is vote. I live in a vote by mail state, and this is my ballot.
Okay.
Backwards now, but 2 sides. It's a big ballot this year, and I've done my homework, so I know what I'm voting for. So I'm going to fill in all the little boxes when we're done and send off my ballot. Everybody needs to go vote. This may be the most important election of our lives, old people's lives, that long.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of I feel a little bit different than you because I live in New York, where whether I vote or not, I know it's going to go New York City. It's going to go liberal. All right. But local races are certain.
That's what everybody thought in the last presidential election.
Well, no, here's what happened in the presidential election. Let's be honest about it. Hillary won by 3 million votes in the popular vote, but it was an electoral vote. And what I don't like is the electoral vote because my vote gets kind of bundled down to like 78 votes or whatever the electoral college is. And I don't feel it's one man, one vote, okay, or one person.
So that means you shouldn't vote just because you don't like the way you do it?
I don't feel in the presidential race that I knew that New York was going to go for Hillary. There was no question about that, okay? And overwhelmingly, New York State went for Hillary.
So that means you shouldn't vote? You haven't answered my question.
Well, I voted, but it doesn't matter if I vote. My vote does not count.
Yes, it does. What if everybody who voted the way you do decided that their vote didn't matter?
Well,
what would happen then?
Well, then somebody would win by 2 votes, and that's because there were 4 votes. But, I mean, the point I'm making is that local races...
And there are good arguments for it. Now is not the time to argue it. No. Right now we have an important election. Afterwards, go work for that.
But where I'm going with this is, in this particular case, local races are incredibly important, and one vote does count, Yes. And so therefore, I will, I guess, go a block and vote. See,
I don't even have to leave my desk.
I don't know where it is. I got to find. I got to find out where it is. But and they always spell my name wrong, so they have a hard time finding me. But anyway, and then I had to fill out forms because I wasn't
Part
the
of
same.
Your name, do they spell wrong?
1 N.
Oh, see, every time I tell people my name, I always say Bennett with 2 N's and 2 T's because of that. Some people leave the second T off, too.
Right. So my name I've always had trouble with. Sometimes they put a T in there, whatever. But they had it wrong, so they corrected it, and then I got my mail, and they didn't correct it. It's always been a pain in the ass. But anyway, I think that the local races are important, and I think while I know that here in Harlem, certainly our congressional representative has never been a Republican. I mean, it was Adam Clayton Powell, and then it was what's his name? Oh God,
don't remember.
And then now it's another guy. Now, it's
Doesn't
been 3
Adam
guys.
Clayton Powell sound historical? I mean, it was I lived there when he was a congressman from Harlem, but it just feels like so long ago now. It's that he's become an historical figure that.
Well, I live on Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. Thank you very much for that extra long name on my mailbox.
Instead of First Street, you mean?
Well, I say 7th Avenue. Fuck it. Because to begin with, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was a crook. All right? Why are we naming a street after him? That 1 block down, we got Malcolm X Boulevard. I would rather have that on my mail. Okay?
Well, that isn't where you bought or rented an apartment.
Exactly.
You're stuck.
Adam Clayton. It's not just Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard.
Can't you
It's Adam
write
Clayton
ACP
Powell Jr.
Jr.?
Yeah, sometimes they do ACPJR, okay, or ACP. But I've just put 7th Avenue because the post office knows that address. So, And if I tell a cab driver, take me down to 7th Avenue and 116th, they know exactly what I'm saying. So these are honorary names they gave these streets.
There are a lot of them around Manhattan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's even a cousin Brucey Way.
Is there really?
Yeah. For a disc jockey.
Are you and I the last 2 people who know who he was?
No, he is still alive and knows who he is. So but anyway, there are a couple of things I guess we should talk about in the time remaining. One of which is Pittsburgh, since you became Jewish and I am Jewish, and you're probably more Jewish than I am, because converts are always more Jewish than the real Jews. How'd you relate to that?
Well, this morning I'm just embarrassed that he's foisting himself on the funerals.
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed. I mean, he embarrasses any thinking human being every single day, but that's just awful.
He's been asked not to come by the mayor of Pittsburgh,
yes,
and by the rabbi of the temple.
And to insinuate yourself and bring a whole entourage of people, that and apparently from what I heard this morning, they've cordoned off the area around the temple, preparing for the president and his safety. And people just want to go and have their funeral, and that's just, and especially when the mayor asked him not to come. And the mayor didn't say not come altogether. Wait a week after the funerals and come, is what he said.
Didn't Obama, in a situation similar to this, wait a week rather than didn't Obama, when there was a tragedy like this, I can't remember which one, I remember him waiting a week before he went somewhere, because
done that altogether. But there's that's just embarrassing. This was, it's such a horrible, horrible tragedy that it takes a long time to I don't know, internalize it, think about it, work it through your mind, and I just can't believe that he's this insensitive, and I know perfectly well he is, but I can't believe he is this time. And
well, remember that black church that got bombed, and how many blacks died in that one? I think that it was somewhere around the same amount of people, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this is the largest ever in the United States of killing of Jews.
Well, of Jews, but I'm saying that racially, I think that the bombing of the black church was equivalent. I seem to remember the number 11 or 12.
You mean in the 60s?
No, a few years back. Just a few years back, yeah.
Right, but I thought we were talking about a Jewish hate rather than black.
Well, I mean, look, let's be honest. This is the greatest mass killing. I thought of this yesterday. The greatest mass killing of Jews since the Holocaust.
At least in this country.
Well, no. I mean, I think...
I'm not sure. But,
anyway.
I mean, you'd have to... I don't think it matters all that much to be correct about that right now. But it's just such a... It's so hateful, so awful. And in this, obviously from all the coverage they've been talking about of the neighborhood the temple is in and the people who go, and what a cohesive, long-term neighborhood that goes back, 100 years or more of a sensibility that people who live there have about their home, their neighborhood, their community, and to just barge in. It seems to me it's a terribly private thing for them, and to have the president just barge in uninvited is just...
Most presidents have waited till after the funerals to go down and pay their respects. Because
well, you see, I'm so cynical, I just think he does it because he can't stand a day without being the center of attention.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He co-opts every event he possibly can. And what I love, there's an old saying, and it's a saying that I've lived by and everybody else should live by, that if you can't be sincere, at least fake it. And fake it convincingly. He cannot convincingly do that kind of thing. I mean, when
he can't even read the teleprompter.
Well, he reads a teleprompter like he's a kid being asked to get up in class and read something from a book he didn't want to read. Okay, and he just reads it, and he has no ability at conveying sympathy. I mean, Obama was very good at it. Even George Bush tried his best. But Trump, he's reading it, but he doesn't feel it, And it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. We don't need your fucking sympathy. And by the way, you're still not washing off the taint that your rhetoric has caused an atmosphere that creates this kind of event.
Well, he's already denied that, and so is Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Well, they always keep bringing up Bernie Sanders guy shot a senator. Yeah, but he didn't die. And secondly, Bernie Sanders wasn't running around uttering incendiary statements.
And there's no comparison. That's what is
at no point did Bernie Sanders ever give a sense of permission for this kind of act. Trump has.
This is.
Well, the two of us are.
There aren't words for this kind of thing. There just aren't words.
Yeah, and it's hard for us to talk about it because everybody knows what we're going to think about it. I would love to know how some right-winger justifies all this animosity this man has created in this country. And as I say, his number one job as president, or any president's job, is to protect the American public. I think we will agree with that. That's the main mission, okay, above any other. Whether you protect them by military or whatever, to the protection of the public. When you say incendiary things that give a sense of permission to a mentally deranged human being to go out and either mail bombs or go into a synagogue and start shooting, you're violating that very tenet of what you should be living up to, and that is protecting the American public. And he should be ashamed of himself. And he
doesn't know shame. He doesn't know that exists.
Listen, he would have won. He would have even won me over. Well, not really, but he would have won a lot of people over if he at least had said, maybe what I've said has given the sense of permission to people, and maybe I have to bring my ratchet down my rhetoric, which I thought was, just politics. But maybe there's more to it than that. And everybody would have said, good for you. But he would never do that because he doesn't have that in him.
Well, he doesn't believe it.
He doesn't believe it, no. And Jared Kushner, who is a devout Orthodox Jew.
Oh, he took a phone call on Saturday.
Did he take a phone call on Saturday?
From the president, yes.
Anyway, he's more Orthodox than you and I are, okay?
Well, there's that.
Why he isn't informing him that now would be a bad time to go down there and he should wait a week. And that
maybe he doesn't think it is a bad time. We don't know. He never speaks about anything.
Well, I mean, Jared, any Orthodox Jew would probably be able to give him counsel on this. You know what I'm saying? But no.
I don't know anything about the man.
Yeah.
Except that he uses his position to try to get more money to save his real estate business.
Well, neither do the rest of us. So because he never says anything. I think I heard him speak the other day. I'm glad he doesn't speak. He has a very ineffective voice. But anyway, it's just But how do you think the midterms are going to turn out?
I'm not interested in prognostication. What I am going to do is sit up as late as I can and watch all the returns. One of the things about living on the West Coast after nearly half a century gone is that when you're ready to settle down around dinner time and watch TV and see all the returns, you already got some coming in. They already are predicting who's won eastern states. So you don't have to wait until 10, 11 o'clock
I remember when I was working at KMEL in San Francisco, and it was I think it was Reagan who was running at the time, again for I think the second time or something like that. Anyway, I was living in California, but I was going to go do election coverage starting at 7 o'clock because at 8 o'clock the polls closed in California. And as I'm driving to the station, the election has been called for Ronald Reagan. And I
thought they weren't supposed to do that. I don't keep track of it.
I didn't know whether I should just turn around and go home. It was a waste of my time.
You really feel bad for the people in Hawaii. I mean, by the time their polls close, it is long decided.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how close it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's nice to know when it gets to California, they go, oh, that's the pivotal state. But it's never the pivotal state. Florida's the pivotal state.
Well,
Ohio's the pivotal
and
state.
Some others, too, But you're right, what you said earlier is the local the local selections are going to make a huge difference or not this time.
Yeah.
And everybody on television, all the pundits are prognosticating, and I don't think there's any way to call this, nor do I think we should spend so much time doing that.
We've gone way over our normal time, but let me just bring this up, and then I guess we got to go. This guy Gillum, who's running for governor of Florida, who's running a very, very tight race. Okay, the president today came out and said he should just quit the race because he committed a criminal act by paying $1,800 for tickets to Hamilton.
Right. Yes.
I'm sorry. Tickets to Hamilton to begin with go for about $1,200, but he's overpaying for them. What is the big deal whether this guy got tickets to Hamilton or not? And how does that make him any less capable of being governor of the state of Florida?
And we could get into more whataboutism with all that. With all of the president's suspicious economic activity, financial activity.
Yeah, well, that we'll never find out about because he won't let us see his tax returns.
What I don't get, and this goes back to something that he doesn't even know the existence of shame, is that this morning he announced that he wants to take away birthright citizenship of children of immigrants who were born here. And the Constitution says right there, I think it's the 14th, anybody born within the borders of the United States is a citizen. And he said he can do this with just an executive order, even though it's in the Constitution. But the thing that got to me is that, which he's wrong about, but the thing that most got to me is he said that we're the only country in the world that has birthright citizenship. Canada, Mexico, almost all of Europe has the same thing. And he's done this kind of thing on every topic you can think of over and over and over again. Outright lies. And nothing happens. Nobody cares. I don't get that.
Yeah, well. Hey, listen. We went way over time, but, why not? What you have to say is I find totally interesting. And
we both talk too much.
Well, I talk for a living, and you write for a living, and occasionally you talk for a living. So, it's good either way. Darling, good talking to you. You look great. Okay, that's all I can say.
I feel terrific. That's one of the hardest things about this is that physically I feel wonderful.
Yeah, I just hate when you go to a funeral and the body is lying there, and they say, "Doesn't he look great?" And you go, "Not particularly, because he doesn't have a pulse and he's at room temperature." I mean, what do you mean he looks great?
How many times have you been to a funeral where the casket was open?
On maybe one occasion.
Yeah, that's what I
find that kind of
doesn't happen much these days.
I find it kind of creepy. But I have been in a room with my best friend who had just died, and that was not pleasant, But we won't get into that. You're terrific, and I love you, dear. And you stay looking healthy, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks from now. Okay?
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is Gabby, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey, Ronnie. Love Ronnie. Love having her on. And I hope you do too. Anyway, let me see. Let me get some things going here. First of all, I want to just make mention of the fact that there are a few little problems we're having here at GabNet, and you should be aware of them. The people who handle the server up in Canada that serves out my iTunes files and files that feed the on-demand and so on are not working right. And so therefore, I'm having a hard time porting stuff to iTunes. I have... and to also to our Roku channel. However, I have gone to extremes to be able to do the on-demand here, so that if you want to listen to any of our programs, just use the on-demand section. Or you can listen to our 24/7 channel, which is always available as well. Anyway, and the other thing is that on starting on what is it? I guess it would be Thursday. Skype is ending the use of what they call Skype 7, which is what we use for this program. And we don't know how that's going to affect the use of 7. The thinking is that they will allow you to use 7, they just won't be supporting it anymore. In other words, they won't be doing updates, and they won't be doing fixes on it or anything like that, which is fine with me because it works just fine. And we'll see how long we can keep using it. If it comes to a point where I can't use it, I'll make some attempt to use the Skype 8 point fuck. But I'm not sure. Okay, and I will have to just wait and see what the deal is there. I may be able to get to work fine. The problem is that I use a program here that reads the screen, among other things. In other words, this thing that you see here, which nobody is calling, so I can show it to you, that's the Skype screen. Okay, now that I can just do by bringing it up and saying go to the Skype screen, but under the new Skype it doesn't come up, and I have to use a subsidiary program in order to bring it in, and the whole thing is rather iffy. All right, iffy jiffy. So I don't know how that's going to bear for the program being done live. The other way I could do it, the video being done, the other way I could do it is by doing it on the Mac over here, and that it does seem to work with. But the worst part about it is the way in which Skype renders the picture on the screen is just horrible. Just horrible, and I have no idea how that's gonna look and ferret itself out. Hello to Phil.
Hey, how you doing?
Still haven't gotten your microphone fixed, huh?
No, but I think I figured out what it was.
What?
Now I've just got to go home early enough in the day to call the place that that helps me out. I think it's a issue of security, allowing the microphone to work with Skype. And it's not in Skype, it's in the security area. And so they told me what to do, but I'm just going to have the guy help me online.
Well, the security section.
Yeah.
What security section in what? In
the Mac, for Mojave.
In the Mac. Well,
yeah.
I think I know where that permission is, actually. It's under security. Yes, it's under security. Well, don't do it now. But it's under security, and if you go there, it'll ask you for that particular thing that it wants to okay, and then you go yes.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
I think that's what it is. I wrote Personas.
Mm-hmm.
They got back to me with that information, and I sent it off to the people at Obedia.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty simple thing to do. I do it all the time because under Mojave it has asked to reestablish that a certain program I'm using is okayed by me.
Yeah.
You know, and anyway. Hello, Brian Ludwig. How are you?
You might not be able to hear me.
Oh, we hear you. We hear you.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Okay, sometimes it likes to default to default communication device, and then I got to manually set it back to this Yeti microphone that I purchased on Amazon that's USB enabled.
But anyway, getting back to you for a second, Phil, it's a pretty simple thing to do. I think I know what it's asking you to do.
Yeah.
And if you go to security, and privacy, it might actually have a thing that says, do you want to allow this? Because it's recognizing that it's there. You say yes, and the next thing you know, you're up and running. Very simple.
Yeah. All right.
Very simple.
Well, I'll play with it later. I'm on a different computer. I'm on the MacBook Pro, not on the Mac Pro.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the new Macs today that they came out?
I saw that there was going to be a new MacBook. It was an Air.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it yet. I'm done buying.
Yeah. Here's what these fuckers at Apple do. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why I feel like shit that I'm wedded to their ecosystem. Okay, because of this. But they just came out with the new Mac Minis. And believe it or not, the starting price for a new Mac Mini is about $100.
$300.
No, $100 cheap. $100 cheaper than it was. But let me tell you the difference. None of these Mac Minis come with a hard drive.
Oh.
They all come, guess what? With a flash drive.
How big?
The starting one for that $7.99 price or whatever is 128 gigabytes.
Well, that's pretty good. That's what they were.
No, they were.
No, the intro one was
no, they were 500. The hard drive in it.
The entry level one?
Yeah, and the one you gave me, you sold me.
It was a gig.
That was a gig.
I mean, a terabyte.
A terabyte, and
right.
and then it had a flash drive attached to it, so it was a fusion drive, they called it.
Right.
Very preppy and very good because the other versions here are a little slower. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this will make it faster, but the thing is that I decided if I wanted to go like full everything on the new Mac Mini, they go up to 64 gigabytes of memory and so on. Yeah, it's pretty good, huh? You know how much it costs to put in 64 gigabytes of memory?
$700.
Try $1,200.
Wow.
Yeah, and do you know how much it would cost if I were to go out and somehow it was easy for you to do it in there and I could add the memory myself? Do you know how much it would cost me?
$500.
Probably much less than that, maybe a couple of $100.
I have 16 gig, I think, in the Mac Pro, and I was thinking about. I went online and I can buy memory. I can fully populate it to 64.
And you can do that yourself with the Mac Pro.
Yeah, I can do that myself, and it's like $500.
But with the Mac Mini, they won't let you. Although in the old Mac Minis, you could. There was a place in the bottom to put in more memory.
The one you got from me is fully populated.
Yeah,
That's got 16.
Yeah. But anyway, so I sat down and on their thing, I added everything that would be, 64 gig, 2 terabyte flash, the highest possible
chip,
CPU, whatever.
And then the video card.
And no video card. They have the same video card in all of them.
Oh,
okay.
Because the one you got from me has an advanced video card.
Yeah, but guess what? Came out to, ready? $4,200.
You might as well get the Mac Pros.
Yeah, why don't you get a Mac Pro? Mac Pro comes in at you can get it for about $2,800 and then populate it with the memory and add the hard drives and do all of that.
The new Mac Pro, which I don't think is out yet.
Yeah.
If you fully populate it, it's $14,000.
Well, yeah, but that if you have them do it.
Yeah.
I would never. When I got this Mac, my old tower here.
Yeah.
I got it unpopulated. I mean, I got it with just whatever came with it, and I slipped all the memory in it, and got it up to 32 gigs.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think they're kind of shitheads because what they're doing is by doing the flash drive thing, they're kind of forcing you to buy your storage space. Although there is a positive side of it. You can go out and get yourself one of these little external drives, even the tiny ones, and use them to handle all your apps and things like that. You can fill that up with the apps. Yeah. Or you can even use it as a boot drive as well. So, that's what I did with my iMac. When that hard drive was no longer working, I put the system on that little drive, and when it's plugged in, it's used as the boot drive. It boots it right up. It takes a while, but it boots it up. And then it runs fine. It's like a brand new iMac.
So you don't have enough computers?
Oh, I've got enough. I mean, I've got, how many have I got in this room? I got 1, 2, 3, 4 in this room, and 5, 6, 7 in the other room. Yeah.
Well, I understand. I'm sitting here, iPad, Mac Pro, MacBook Pro, Apple 10 phone, and an Apple Watch. They got me.
Yeah, well, I mean, so you're in the ecosystem. That's what it's all about. And, you know, I don't mind being in the ecosystem. It's just that they find ways to screw you over, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like they just added new iPads, and they're cheaper. But again, the cheaper version of it gives you less memory. So you want to add more memory, you know? And it's one thing or another, because now you can have up to, I don't know, 512K of memory and whatever. I mean, they're going cheaper on one end because you're getting something that isn't fully populated.
Well, you know, yeah, you get what you pay for. My iPad Pro, it's the 12-inch one. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's too big.
Do you want to know something? The new one is almost 13.
Really?
Yes. It's 12.8. But it has it's the same size because it just moves out to the edge of the bezel.
I see.
See, where you have space around it. This moves all the way out to the bezel. So the size, the physical size doesn't change, but the screen goes from a 12.1 or something like that to a 12.9, I think.
Yeah.
So.
And the other thing I found that's a waste is having the cellular. I don't think I've ever used the cellular on the iPad.
I use it all the time on the iPad.
Yeah.
Although you can get along very nicely if you're using it at home a lot, you know. But,
well, if you've got a hotspot on your phone, why do you need the?
Yeah, I haven't tried that though. You know. So, but you know, I've got cellular on this watch.
Yeah.
You know, and I never use it.
Okay.
But the day is going to come when I'm going to need it. So, you know, what the hell? Well, you know, for $120 a year, it's not a problem. What?
I listened to your first half hour, mm-hmm. and it may not to get off of Apple, but it was interesting. You know, I have a friend that passed away about a year and a half ago, and he's been an extremely close friend of mine. And it's amazing how many times I just look at his phone number in my phone and want to call him and say, "Hey, how you doing?" and you know what's going on. And I know that he passed away. He found out in like January that he was terminal, mm-hmm. and by March he was dead. Mm-hmm. And every Sunday I went to his house and visited him. He was in a bed. He couldn't get out of bed, but we talk every Sunday. And, you know, those kinds of memories and those kinds of things, you just can't discount. And the fact that you're having these conversations with your ex-wife, Ronnie, is going to be very valuable to you as time goes by.
I don't care if it's valuable to me.
No. To your own feeling, because, you know, when the person passes, they're done. You're the one that has to deal with the void in your life, and believe me, my friend passing was definitely a void in my life.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you're probably right. I'm supposed to go see her at some point, and to tell you the truth, I mean, to be honest with you, the prospect bothers me a little bit. You know?
Oh, I understand.
You know,
I understand, but
because I don't want to feel there's a time when I'm going to get on an airplane. That's the last I'm going to see her. You know?
Yeah.
You know, things like that hit me. And I guess there's a selfish part of us, I guess, you know?
It's easier to deal with somebody that passes away immediately. You know, they have a heart attack and it's done, rather than someone that you have to go through the grieving process.
What I was saying to her is there is something positive to someone who's dying slowly, because they get to say goodbye to everybody. They get to say, "I'm sorry" to all the people they might have had arguments with. You know, you get to literally button up your life. Whereas if you die of a heart, oh boy, hey, turn off your microphone, Brian.
Oh, you can hear that from across the room.
Oh,
yeah. Well, you have a Yeti. We can hear that from Fresno.
Yeah.
Surprised you can't hear my bowels move.
Yeah.
As powerful as this motherfucker
By the way, folks.
What I was saying, what I wanted to say was, has their cancer come back?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't you heard?
The pancreatic, this is the one you were talking about.
No, not the pancreatic cancer. Other cancers.
You know, that the other thing that's difficult to deal with is, for instance, I'm cancer-free right now. But what if in 6 months, all of a sudden I get something else, you know, bladder cancer,
father, Phil.
lung cancer.
Similar with his prostate.
You know, and so it's like you think you've been given a new lease on life, and then all of a sudden they take it away from you. And it's hard to stay positive with that.
Well, this time it came back in her lung and her, I can't remember what the term was, the peritoneum or something it's called.
Yeah.
And they say it's inoperable.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not good, you know. And I was so happy for her because so few people survive pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
But she survived it. I mean,
I know.
That never came back.
So other forms came in and fucked her up.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not fair, but, you know, life isn't fair. And, you know, it's hard to be given a pass, like with pancreatic cancer, and then all of a sudden you turn around and they whip you again.
Well, that was the most deadly of cancers you could get. Okay, and
well, this one doesn't sound too good either.
Yeah, but in this case, it's inoperable. But she doesn't feel any of it yet, you know, and that's the part that I guess bothers her. If she wasn't feeling well, I suppose you know it would you know.
Now this is in her lung, you know, because my friend who passed away had endopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a deep scarring in the lungs. They don't know why you get it, but it's fatal. And some people, it takes years to become fatal, and in his case, it was extremely aggressive. It only took months. Yeah. And you know, he was hoping to get a lung transplant. Is that anything that is?
No. Apparently not. I mean, I'm leaving it up to her. I wish she would come to New York and see some specialists here in New York, but she doesn't want to do it. She feels her doctors are the best there are, and you know, and so you know, it's her decision to make. I would love to see her come to New York and see some specialists. Yes, Brian.
I was going to say, unless I would assume that especially when you reach a certain age, when you're up there in years, unless two conditions, unless we get Medicare for all, A, and B, cutting edge science wise, until we're able to actually clone and grow a new set of our own organs from like 30 years ago, or something like that, chances of getting like a lung transplant or something for something like what your ex-wife is going through and what your friend had gone through a year ago, Phil, are pretty much slim and none.
Well, you know, at my age, all I have to look forward to is death, and if it doesn't come soon, then I have to look forward to real bad aging. You know,
you know, most of it. I know people your age and older, and some of them look like they're death warmed over, and others are totally vibrant, and there's no difference between them.
Everybody ages at a different.
No, but it's a lot of it is in your mind. You know how you view things. You know, I went to Kaiser today to get some glasses, new glasses. I ordered them, and you know, you see people of all different ages, and you know, some of them are vibrant, and others, you know, have the walker.
Listen, years ago, I went to Ronnie's class reunion. Her, I don't know, 30th or something like that. And we went into this room, and the one thing I noticed, one thing that suddenly became apparent to me was that everybody in this room was within a year of each other, or maybe 6 months of each other. Okay? Yeah. If you have a center pole here, then one was over here and one was over here, so a year difference. But they all were within a certain age range, and you couldn't tell what that age was. Some of them looked young, some of them looked really old and dowdy. You couldn't tell. You know, because people age differently. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I don't know, I guess attitude. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely attitude.
You know.
Yeah. And also, you know, like my mother is 90, and she is the healthiest person I know. Doesn't take any pills, drives, exercises. You would look at her and you'd think she's 60.
Yeah.
And she's always eaten healthy. She's always exercised. And now now that she's 90, I doubt that she'd, other 90-year-olds, they look like they're bedridden.
Yeah.
They got oxygen.
She'll probably be like Abe Vigoda, she'll go on for years and years and years and years. And fortunately, and this is where I disagree with the both of you, where it's better to die quickly and rather than, prolong the agony, it'll just be like that when she finally does go. Where minimal to no suffering whatsoever, and
you see,
it'll be a peace.
One thing that crosses my mind is I don't want her to have to bury me. And so that keeps me alive, I just don't want her to have to bury
It's not a unique motivating factor either.
Yeah. Tony's joined us here. At least we have a happy threesome.
Oh, my.
4 with you. 4 with you.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm, Anyway.
Yeah, he's the host watching and taking pictures with his camera, Phil.
Who's taking pictures with his camera?
It was the threesome joke he was saying. Saying that you're the host, and with you, the host. You're the one holding the camera and taking pictures of us.
When I get 4, it reminds me of the Let It Be album cover. Yeah. So anyway, let me see here. What is there to talk about?
Quite a bit.
There's plenty. You were saying that you thought it was inappropriate for Trump to go to Pittsburgh.
They sent a Christian rabbi down there too.
What kind of Christian rabbi?
Yeah. What's his name? Your vice president asshole. Vice
President Fundy fucker.
He presented a rabbi who was like one of these
Jew
for Jesus rabbis.
Oh my God!
I mean, just what's wrong with it? It's in bad taste considering what happened, Phil.
That's fucked up. You shouldn't do that.
No,
we should know better.
They wanted to respect those that lost their lives.
If they wanted, look, to begin with, Phil, what you do is what every president has done in tragedies like this. You don't go this soon to the tragedy. You go a week later. Part of the reason, let me finish, Phil. Part of the reason is that people have to have time to grieve, number one, and you should respect that. And secondly, you should do it because you're going to make such a fuss by being there that you would rather it would be done a week later when it didn't have that same kind of impact. But no, the reason why Trump wanted to be there was for political purposes and because the election is coming up. And the mayor suggested, hold on a second, the mayor didn't say stay away. He said, please wait a week before you come here. And the reason he didn't wait a week is because in a week there'd be an election. Now try and excuse that one, Phil.
Sure.
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to say this: if he didn't go, then they would have said he didn't go.
No. He could very easily.
He can't win with you guys. No matter what he does.
Could very easily have just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the mayor's suggestion. I'm going to go next week and let people have their time to grieve before I go and pay my respects. And everybody would have said fine. What, Tim?
I would agree wholeheartedly.
You agree with
I don't disagree with you. I feel everybody's got an opinion. And and I'll respect that opinion. If your loved one was killed in this event, and now here comes the president with motorcades, Secret Service security, all descending upon this church, a rather hallowed place to begin with, and especially made more hallow by the tragedy that has just befallen it. You don't need that. You would feel used.
It was still a crime scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were still working. You know what can explain why he went today? Follow the money. He had too much invested in his rallies the next 7 days. He could get in there and get out. It would have ruined the election if he waited 1 day.
You know,
if he waited till next week, it would have ruined the election for him because he's got rallies planned and lots of money spent.
I would agree.
What he said, Tim, was he didn't want this animal that did this horrendous act.
Well, he has did he call him an animal?
He called him something like that. I don't know if he called him an animal, but he called him crazy and some other things.
Well, you know, if he called him something which was incendiary, then he was being doubly stupid because there's going to be a trial, and a good lawyer could use that as a defense.
This guy
that's all theater, Phil. That's theater because he didn't care anything about the 10 people who almost got assassinated with pipe bombs. Didn't care one wince about that.
So
don't tell me he cares about somebody that attacked. Do you know about Hayes?
Yes.
And the fact that he was ranting against Hayes, who helps immigrants?
Yes.
It would make the caravan look good because people would actually do some research. I tweeted out, what if Trump called out the military to protect him from the protesters in Pittsburgh because those families protesting were the same make of children, families that the caravan is. It's just people trying to survive. People trying to survive.
Yeah, they may try to survive, and they were offered everything that they needed and wanted in Mexico, but are refusing it. And they're not entering legally. There is a system for legal immigration.
They're refugees. They're going to seek asylum, and we can either deny or allow the asylum. That is not illegal. And there's certainly no disease like Fox News is putting out.
Now, would you
They're
say
not bringing
that,
diseases?
Would you say that the offer of Mexico would put them in harm's way for them to give them food, housing, jobs, and welcome them into Mexico, which was the first country?
Some of them took the offer, but some of them didn't. What about our families that came here across the Atlantic?
They came
legally.
What if
they weren't allowed to come over?
Oh, no, they didn't come legally, Phil. They didn't come legally because Jews weren't allowed in this country during World War II.
Certain ethnic groups didn't even have rights. They didn't have birthrights. Chinese were born in the United States.
You should want every one of these refugees to find a place here in America because our people were denied it during World War II.
I want them to find a place in America. I want them to be vetted. I don't want
people
coming in.
They do vetting on any refugee that comes into the country. It's highly vetting.
Yeah, when they knock down the barrier and the wall, and then they come in, and then what happens is they ask them to appear for a hearing.
Phil, you're talking like Fox News. I want you to take back the statement.
Of course I'm talking like Fox News. I'll have a video. Tim,
what wall did they break down? Oh, you mean the one in Mexico?
The one from Guatemala to Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to come in illegally, so don't give me that crap.
Trump is doing the right thing when they come.
Listen, he's
call out the military who legally doesn't. They don't have any authority to do anything anyway.
Going to do anything except provide logistics to the Border Patrol so they don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's going to be really funny.
No, this is just theater up through the elections, just like his birthright amendment that he can't change with an executive order.
Here's what I hope happens, Tim. Here's what I hope happens. As they've been coming north, they haven't been coming north in the same numbers they left Honduras with.
No, they haven't.
And I hope that there will be 15, how many people, how many troops is he putting at the border, 5,000?
5,200, yeah.
No,
5,200. I hope only 300 people show up at the border.
That would be great.
And you know what? They're going to traumatize the military to have to attack civilians. We kill enough civilians. Do you know that Pompeo finally came out with a statement that we should end the slaughter in Yemen? We're causing a famine in Yemen. It's a humanitarian crisis in Yemen because of us and the Saudis.
Just like we've hegemonistically fucked with Honduras.
How many civilians did we kill in Iraq? That wasn't enough for America to have on our hands? Hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians in Iraq.
Hey, Tim, this is Brian. I was just saying, not to mention all the hegemonistic fucking that the United States government has been doing in Honduras, which is not coincidentally where these immigrants are fleeing from. Is that correct?
Right, we're doing nothing to help those.
But we did everything we could to destabilize that region. Is what I'm saying. That country.
We just don't care about them anymore. We don't care about them. Because we're not. You know why, Brian? Because we're not globalists. We're not allowed to be globalists
Phil,
anymore.
why did you just send me a message that says I've got your caravan right here?
Yeah, we're not globalists when it comes to humanitarian aid.
That's the video of them knocking down the wall.
Aren't we, Tim?
Oh, gee, they're knocking down the wall. Wow.
Right, Brian.
I thought they're
the one that Tim says doesn't exist.
Well, even Trump admits it doesn't exist because he's asking for money to build it.
No, this is the one between Guatemala and Mexico.
Wait a minute, that isn't our wall.
Has kept people
and
from
it wasn't.
coming
Wait a minute,
across
hold on a second, Phil. It wasn't even a wall. It was a bridge.
No. There's a second group of migrants, and this is a video from yesterday from the second group.
Okay, can I say something, Phil?
Yeah.
The reason they came to the border is because Mexico said they were not going to stop them initially. They weren't going to take out armed force against them. They were told that they would be allowed to come into Mexico and keep going. And then Mexico changed their mind at the last minute, probably because Jared called the people he's working with and he negotiates with Mexico and threatened them.
Hey,
that
Tim,
we would have economic sanctions against Mexico if they didn't at least attempt. Mexico had to kowtow to us, too.
Another conspiracy, Tim. Does Mexico have the right to change their mind as to their security?
Yeah, I didn't say they couldn't, but I'm explaining why those people came actually to the border, and then they were stopped at the last minute. What are they going to do?
Well, this is the second caravan. I sent it to you in your messenger so you can see.
Okay, that's fine. Do you know how many refugees that the countries in the Middle East take in from the wars we've had in the Middle East? Millions. Millions of that refugees for years that we barely helped with. And we've cut back the funding for help with the refugees in most of these countries as well.
Whataboutism. How many did the Saudis take? How many did the Kuwaitis take?
What about?
I'm talking about real refugees that went into Jordan and other countries like that. Hundreds of thousands.
And
displaced family.
With the aid of the U.S. to help them.
The aid that's been cut off, and the aid that was minimal, and we cut off all the allowing Syrians to come here in the first place from a war we should have stopped a long time ago.
What happened to Angela Merkel? It was either today or yesterday.
Angela. It's pronounced Angela.
Because America's not a shining beacon of freedom anymore.
No. Angela Merkel is having trouble with her.
There's an authoritarian wave taking over all the countries, and because we don't have a decent leader like JFK or somebody like that in there to fight against the authoritarian takeover of these countries, this world is we're going to be in war most probably in the next decade.
Maybe we do have a decent leader, and that's what you're fighting against.
Okay, that's certainly your opinion. I'm saying the guy knows nothing about foreign aid.
And what does he know about military? What does he know about the military? He never served in it except at some doofus military academy.
What's he got to know? He's done major excellent things for the military.
Like what? Like what?
Everything.
Like what?
You can take from veterans benefits to giving them raises to arming them with the best equipment.
How many immigrants that got a contract to work in the military got kicked out in the last 2 years? Quite a few.
Well, I don't know that you can...
Even though they're fighting for our country, they kicked them out.
What are you talking about?
They kicked out the people that were not full U.S. citizens. A lot of them signed up and worked in the military alongside U.S. citizens to earn their citizenship, and they canceled the program in most of them.
Don't you have to be a citizen to be a member of the military?
No.
What about the federal...
What about to work in building military weapons and so forth?
No.
I seem to. Hey, Alex, tell them about the veterans who were students in New York City that are getting kicked out because the VA is 4 months behind paying them their education benefits under the VA Act.
Well, I don't know about that, but you can tell us about it.
Well, there's, I think de Blasio and the county of, whatever the county is of New York, are going to have to help these veterans because they get these educational stipends to live and go to college, and they need that to pay for their dorms or whatever they're living. And the payments, because he changed the law, the VA got behind by 4 months.
Hey,
I tweeted it out earlier.
government.
It's a news article, and I think the New York Times.
I mean, that's the government. He just said because of him.
No, and you want the government to take over your health care? Come on, look.
Wait a minute. No, he wants Trump to do something.
What was the act that Trump signed just recently that said that if you had to wait for medical care as in the VA, that you could just go out and get it?
It was probably a sex act if it was Trump.
No. There was it was something that he had signed recently. I just can't remember the name of it. But what it did was it greatly improved the service. And also, you can fire people that work in the VA if they're not giving good service, unlike the Social Security Administration.
Well, I'm happy with the Social Security Administration.
I gave Tim a dig because he's a career Social Security Administration.
Did you hear Brian Schatz, the senator from Hawaii, state that Paul Ryan started dreaming of cutting Social Security when he was in college? And he's going to get to do it if they get the election.
Well, we want to.
Did you realize he went to college?
Come on.
Well,
fake news.
Don't you want to?
That's true.
Don't you want to support a young man's dreams?
Paul Ryan's got some crazy dreams up there.
Not even his wet dreams.
He wants to go home and be with his family. He's not going to be around after January.
You haven't seen Paul Ryan. Where is he? You haven't seen Rudy.
You haven't seen Rudy at all. It's like Rudy got assassinated or something, or murdered in his sleep. You haven't seen Rudy anywhere.
He might float up soon. I don't know.
Rudy's working on something else. Isn't he working with Mueller? Dealing with Mueller and the
latest thing they tried to do with Mueller? Well, they tried to pay some woman how much money, Tim? Do you remember?
Well, it's $20,000 plus paying off the credit card debts, which we don't know how much.
Okay, if she would say that Mueller molested her or came on to her or whatever.
Giuliani's
and then she wait a minute.
Do it for $250.
No, and then she came through and I guess told everybody that she had been offered this money by certain nefarious people.
I doubt it. Come on.
Well,
hey, Alex,
Mueller asked the FBI to investigate. Mueller asked the FBI to investigate it and look into it because he didn't want anybody to try and blunt him with some kind of false accusation.
That was smart.
Some left-wing deal to try to discredit.
How do you know that, Phil? Do you know that?
How do you know that somebody actually was offered $20,000?
Because she came forward and said it.
So did that Sputnik girl with Avenatti, and she's full of shit.
Oh, wait a minute. They didn't say Sputnik was full of shit. They just the FBI felt that there wasn't enough credible information there to pursue it.
Any.
No, they didn't say any, Phil. They didn't say any. And
I just did.
And Avenatti still says that she has some credible information.
Yeah, well, you have confirmation bias, so I don't give a shit.
Yes, Tim. Yes, Tim.
Has anybody asked if you're part of the Gab.com? It's pretty close to your Gabnet, isn't it? Gary.
I was thinking about that.
I got a call from Jack the other night saying a friend of his called him and said, "Aren't you afraid you're going to be confused?" No, we are Gabnet. We are not Gab.com. And even if we were
confused by all the Trump voters up there, they won't know the difference.
And even if we were, they were simply giving somebody a page. They were like Facebook. They're not guilty of anything.
Hey, you're Gab on the net. Now, that's you should be convicted.
I guess since Go Sugar Daddy pulled their funding,
in some countries you get arrested for exercising free speech.
In most countries.
Right, most countries.
Okay.
But I think the hate speech that they allowed on Gab, you know, I agree with the First Amendment, and you know, even the ACLU fought for the Nazis' right to march or whatever it was.
Well, yeah.
And you know, as much as I feel the Nazis are the one of the most despicable groups of people on this face of this earth.
It's interesting because Trump doesn't. But go ahead.
Yes, he does. Yes,
no, he doesn't.
You're putting words in his mouth.
No, he put his own words in his mouth when he said that
he was doing nothing more than the ACLU did when they allowed these guys to march.
No, the ACLU did that because they saw that there was a legal protection that needed to be afforded every citizen, and they would be hypocritical if they didn't, on some level, go and defend their right to march. Not to make
Trump saying that, you know, just because there are some statues in the South, that there were some good people too. They're not all Nazis.
Good people on both sides, he said.
Well,
that was a false equivalency, completely false.
He didn't include Nazis. You know,
he complained because Bernie Sanders didn't get harassed for the other attack that was supposedly his follower, Steve Scalise.
But Tim, what he was saying that there were things that happened under other people's watches, but they're associating Trump with this, and they didn't associate Obama with the church or Sanders with shooting.
They didn't spread lies about the targets that were hit by the crazy people.
I don't believe that Trump spread lies about those targets. Those targets spread them on.
He's lied about each one of those targets. Every one of them. Brennan.
You know, they said that.
And how many times did he lie about Clinton and Obama?
I don't think any of them were lies. I think they're all true.
You believe in the birther movement then?
Yeah. Where's Obama? Yeah, I'm a birther.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. Here's the thing. How's this? Number one, how's this for a soundbite in terms of putting words in someone's mouth? In this case, Trump's. It's not Alex putting words in Trump's mouth. It's Alex putting words to Trump's actions. Number two, these actions. Let me finish. God damn it. These actions are from a stochastic terrorist, like Mr. Trump.
Yes, and I know what that means too, Brian.
Stochastic terrorist.
Well, look. As far as I'm concerned, his actions have been nothing but positive. You look at, you see, when you look at Trump, you only see the negative.
I see a big fat fucking asshole. Yes.
I see a mushroom dick.
Well, they try to, you know, the left tried to do the same thing to Reagan. Calling him,
yeah, but Reagan was a great communicator. He just had an affability about him.
So the fact that Trump isn't as good a communicator but is a great leader, that
he can't even read a teleprompter convincingly.
So what? That's not.
Well, he was the one. Wasn't he the one? Wasn't he the one? Yes, it is, because you have to be able to communicate to the public, or especially in situations like this, and not get up and read some prepared statement that makes you look like an 8th grader who's been asked to read in class and doesn't want to do it.
I'm sorry, I think your priorities are all wrong. I thought his priority was to make sure that we didn't have nuclear war with North Korea. I thought his priorities were to make sure that he fulfilled his promises to Israel. I thought his priorities were...
Wait a minute, why doesn't he fulfill his promises to me? To protect me as a citizen, to make me safe. No, he's not. All he does is perpetuate hate and violence, and he sits there and he likes it.
You're listening to too much.
No, I'm listening to him, Phil. I'm listening to him when he goes, "Oh boy, that's my kind of guy," because he body slammed
a rally.
No, I don't give a shit if it's a rally. That's where the future bombers. That's where the future bombers. Where the future.
You're trying to stifle what he has to say. You're trying to stifle his message.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you then I guess the NAA, what do you call it? The ACLU was all wrong in defending the right of Nazis to march. You're defending a guy who believes in violence.
Hey, Alex, I got an example for you. Do you know Howard Feynman?
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, that was his original neighborhood, as well.
Oh
as
yes,
Mr.
yes,
Rogers.
Howard Feynman.
He's reporting.
Yeah.
Howard Feynman's reporting that the White House called top Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania political officials, lied to each of them, and said the others had already agreed to meet the president in Pittsburgh.
Another conspiracy.
He did the same thing to Schumer and Pelosi.
I'll believe Feynman.
Individually, that the other had agreed to go.
Phil, I'll believe Feynman before I believe you. Feynman's a very good reporter.
I believe in
very distinguished.
And very distinguished. Something you are not.
News. Fake news.
Trump wanted to go into hospital rooms for photo ops, and most of the families denied him access. Now, I'm just reporting. Go to Howard Feynman on Twitter, and you tweeted it about 10 hours ago or something like that.
Damn you, Tim. I almost spit my coffee out from there.
And that is Feynman's home neighborhood. That's where he was raised, Squirrel Hill.
And Feynman would know, because he knows all those people, and he would not lie. I just can't imagine him lying.
Yeah,
that's funny. You were talking about this. Because,
you know, it's funny that whenever anything is
reported.
reported, wait a minute, let me finish this. Anytime anything's reported, Phil's answer to it is fake news.
Yeah,
you know, that's like the immediate defense of anything.
Why are you surprised?
Here's your Howard Feynman on Twitter. Trump pays tribute at synagogue where 11 were fatally shot. Rabbi Jeffrey Myers is a gracious, wise leader. He had no choice but to allow the Trumps to visit Tree of Life. It was quick, restrained, crowds were absent, polls were, POLS.
Well, what you didn't notice was how fast the rabbi dragged him inside to keep it from becoming a political rally of one sort or another, whether it was people complaining against him or whatever. He wanted to get it away from there, so by bringing Trump inside, he was able to stop that, or at least blunt it. He was doing the only thing he could do.
It was a positive thing.
Well, how is it a positive thing?
I think it would have been, but not the timing if they don't want him.
No, that's your interjection. I think that going there.
These people have lost loved ones, and they don't want to be used for politics and for
politicizing.
How do you know
he was using them instead of being
because it had. When it looks like politicking and it smells like politicking, you can pretty well be sure that it's politicking.
Phil, are you Jewish, Phil?
Like a similar pattern of behavior from years past.
Not today.
I can't imagine him using the American Holocaust. For political gain.
He's not using the Holocaust. This was a terrible thing. If it happened at a black church, I would have expected him to go kill.
This is America's Holocaust.
And by the way, under Obama, I think
this is just the beginning.
Hold on a second. Let me go to Tim because he knows about certain things. Obama was president when a similar occurrence happened, and I believe it happened at a black church. And he waited.
South Carolina.
And he waited how long before he went down there? He didn't do it the next day, did he?
It was about a week.
It was about a week. And I think Bush had something similar happen, and he waited about a week.
But he let him know. He let him know they were coming, so they wouldn't think he was going to ignore it. But they gave him time to prepare.
Yeah.
How long do Jews wait until they intern their dead?
What? 2 days. 2 days.
2 days.
So, you don't know that? You're a Jew.
Yeah,
but
ask?
I don't think they can do that when they're doing autopsies.
Well,
No.
Yeah.
2 days, that's it.
No.
Yeah,
but
sometimes it's real quick.
Phil, they're getting longer than 2 days. There's an exception here because there are autopsies that are being done. And believe it or not, when Moses was alive and the laws were written, there weren't autopsies. Okay.
Remember they pushed him down the river in the movie? In the little
they didn't have refrigerators back then either.
No, but 4 or 5 of them were buried today, right?
Yeah.
So
two of them, I think.
There was the brothers. I think there was at least 4, maybe 5 were buried. So did they complete their autopsies faster than the other 6?
They may well have. You know, but all I'm saying is that there are exceptions. You should bury them within 2 days, but if there are things like autopsies that have to happen or things that legally have to happen, you're allowed. It isn't like God is going to get you.
I know. When my father died, it was over the Passover holiday. And so it was 3 days in that case because of Passover.
Well, part of the reason why the Jews bury within 2 days and the Muslims within 24 hours, is basically because it's the belief that once somebody is buried, the healing can begin. And so it's done as a healing process. So it's not written in stone, it's just considered tradition.
Well, and then we sit shiver for a week.
Yeah.
Which, there's usually good food.
Yeah, that's what the casserole was invented for. Yeah.
My mother already said when she passes away, she only wants 2 days. She don't want more than that, both of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
enough, she figures.
Listen, I had a.
I'm glad because I don't want to be there 3 days.
I had a woman who worked with me, Christy, whose mother died. And it was during a what do you call it? A strike of the mortuary people. What happened to Tim?
We lost Tim for a minute, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe he got a phone call.
And during a cemetery strike, and she couldn't bury her grandmother for 3 months.
Oh my God! Where'd they put her?
You know, and she would come in every day. And she'd say, "Just my grandmother is probably lying there." You know, just
months to put her in.
Yeah, it's terrible. So that's why you want to bury somebody as fast as possible. You know. And I in my case, I suggest you bury me standing up, so I take as little space as possible. Yeah.
So now, and
throw my ass in a box, light it on fire, and blow the ashes away. That's all I fucking care about.
Now, Alex, your funeral's paid for, and you get a burial with a casket because of the military.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to be cremated.
Oh really?
I believe that's one of the benefits that.
I think he's right, Phil.
Yeah, well, it's very nice that I can get that kind of benefit. You know.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll bury you at Arlington, but
no, and I wouldn't go so far as to request that.
I went to a military funeral. My brother-in-law's
because I think sitting in I don't mind the free casket, but sitting in Hollywood off of
Wilshire
or
no, that's
Santa Monica Boulevard.
Yeah.
Does not really qualify as Arlington stuff, you know.
Well, you also will get a folded flag presented to your widow, and I believe that they'll send a contingent to your funeral to do some sort of honor guard.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to do any of that. Okay, Phil.
Well, they do it for you.
No, I didn't. I don't consider my military service to be high level. Okay, it's more than yours, but I don't consider it to be of a nature.
Hey, there was no war when I was 18.
He wishes there was a war problem.
When you were 18, they were still fighting the War of 1812. I
mean, good thing you didn't see a war. I would hate to get drafted. I
would have been going. I was number 64. And not a very good student. And they eliminated the draft the week that I was 18. So I was 18 June 24th of 72. That last week they had a lottery, but Nixon said the lottery didn't count. And so therefore, and I was number 64 in that lottery. So 64 was definitely going. The guys that got 300, they weren't going. But 64, I would have been saying, where's the chow mein?
Yeah.
I would have been scared.
Yeah, well,
that
war was the war that ruined us.
You're right. I would have been scared. I never would have
that decision was a bad decision because you had an entire country that was divided among itself, and people who were being forced to do illegal things in order to survive.
But it was Johnson that escalated the war and from
he lied about the Gulf of Tonkin too.
Well,
and Alex knows about that.
Yeah, I was involved in knowing about that because I was mustered out with guys who were in the Gulf of Tonkin, and they came back with all these ribbons, and I said, "Boy, it must have really been something out there, huh?" And they said, "What? Nothing went on." Yeah. And so I came back into civilian life, and in radio, I kept saying on talk shows, nothing went on in the Gulf of Tonkin. And when I finally went to ABC and said this, I was told by ABC News not to say that ever again because that was a lie. And just a couple of months later, it came out that the Gulf of Tonkin was a fake. And they came to me.
First conspiracy theorist.
They came to me and they said, "How did you know?" And I said, "I keep my ears open."
Yeah, conspiracy theories are actually true.
It was the first fake news.
So there is fake news, she's right.
Yeah, in reverse. That was by the government. It was government sanctioned.
And then, then I got really bold, and the next thing that I did was I had heard that Richard Nixon, when he was in Russia, had signed a treaty to allow them to use, I think it was it Coca-Cola? Or Pepsi, that was it, Pepsi. To bring Pepsi into Russia. Now, imagine the President of the United States going to Russia and negotiating a treaty that would allow Pepsi-Cola, right, of all things, to be sold in Russia. And once again, I was told by ABC, "Shut up, that isn't true." And a couple of weeks later, it came out that it was true. And they said again, "How did you know?" And I said, "I keep my ears open."
When Nixon was president, Russia was a communist country, basically behind the Iron Curtain. Their currency wasn't being traded, I think, on the open market. And there were times when they used to trade vodka for stuff rather than currency because their currency was not accepted. Isn't that true?
Not that I know of, but you know. We weren't trading with them, but I think a lot of other countries were.
Yeah.
You know, we're not the only country in the world, Phil. This whole concept that, well, if you can't, if China can't do business with the United States, they're really going to be in trouble. And the fact of the matter is, they just do business with India and they're happy.
We are rapidly
their economy
dollarizing.
Their economy took a big hit in the last month over the tariffs.
Oh, really? That's not what I hear. What I hear is they're just doing more business with India and a lot of other countries. They got the rest of the world to do business with, and the rest of the world is happy to do business with them because you know why, Phil? They've got money. Yes.
Well,
yes, Brian.
Let me dovetail with that. They not only have money, they have money that isn't based on the petrodollar. So you got these countries like Russia, China, India, et cetera, that are de-dollarizing themselves, and a lot of people, a lot of economists appear to be taking notice of how rapidly the de-dollarization is occurring and has been occurring for the last.
The de-dollarization.
You know who needs us though? The country that really needs us is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, because they're butt buddies with us. It's the petrodollar, isn't it?
They can't get weapons if it's not for us because. If they go to Russia or France, they can't get supplies for the weapons they have in place. They'll be mismatched.
Saudi Arabia's got their metaphorical cock lodged deep inside of our asshole.
They need us a lot more than we need them.
Yeah. But yet we're going right along with them. You know, even in spite of this Khashoggi deal,
human rights violators that they are.
You know, we're still doing business with them. Oh, you know, to begin with, Trump went out and said, "We have a how many billion-dollar deal with the Saudis?" And that's
110.
110 when it's only, are you ready, folks? 12 billion in reality.
Is the 110 over a period of time?
No.
That was the menu of things they offered to sell Saudi Arabia, and they only took options out on 10%, which was around $12 billion.
Yeah.
So that was a lie. That was a big lie. Did you know that the DOJ is investigating Zinke for profiting while in office?
Who's Zinke?
He's
Department of Interior.
Yeah.
And I think it's a test case for the DOJ to see if they could do the same thing to the Trump family. Because the Trump org's being investigated again.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll have to
And
wait
see
and
what
see after
happens.
next
But
week.
I think they're using Zinke as a test case.
Yeah.
And the reason Rosenstein's still there, and also Sessions, because they know what Mueller has, and they know at some point Trump, or most probably his family members, are going to go down big time. And you heard the latest on Roger Stone, didn't you?
Well, tell me about Roger, because I find him interesting. You know.
Well, they found more memos where he had said to insiders, not to the general public, because he's a liar and a showman, but to his internal people that he'd been working with, because he used to be able to buy into his semi-weekly conference calls, and he would give you the inside dope. He made big money off of it, but there's growing evidence that he knew and had been communicating with Assange when Assange was getting together all the
well,
that
yeah, but that has been what they've been saying all along about him, that he was.
But he's been saying he never talked to Assange ahead of time. But they're finding emails, they're finding recordings, they're finding videos where he just didn't say it as a bravado, that he said it to people he was working with.
I'll tell you something though. I saw a documentary on Roger Stone called "Get Me Roger Stone." And then I last week watched a documentary, the Client 9 film about Elliot Spitzer. And believe it or not, Roger Stone plays largely in both pictures. He's been all over the place. And I find him interesting, you know, because this is a guy who says, I don't care what you say about me. If you think I'm a terrible person, I love it. You know?
He's a wannabe like Rasputin, or somebody that was a court jester that wanted to be involved in everything.
He wants to be, you know what he wants.
He's almost a magician.
He wants to be Roy Cohn, is what he wants to be.
But more of on the entertainment side than the legal side.
Any of us who have had the ability to look Roy Cohn straight in the face have said, and I've said this, and everybody who's ever met up with him said, I never knew what the devil looked like till I looked into the eyes of Roy Cohn.
Does he look like he doesn't have a soul? Is that how it looks?
Shark eyes, maybe.
And didn't he tell you that he slept very well at night?
Yes, because of the death of the Rosenbergs. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, Alex, did you ever know Credo, this comedian in New York?
No, never heard of him.
The guy that he talks about him mostly. I forget what station he's still on one of the radio stations there.
No, Credo is not. Credico is who you're thinking of.
Credico, I'm sorry, Credico.
Randy
Did
Credico.
you ever know him?
No, I think he was just a mediocre comic that, quite frankly, never crossed paths with me. So
yeah, he's trying to make it in the big time because of what he knows on Roger Stone.
It's Randy Credico. Yeah. Well, you know, I mean. Who was it? They said Stone was representing. He's been there a lot with people doing dirty tricks for people. He was like really good at dirty tricks, and I just find him interesting. You know, more interesting than a lot of the other bad guys. He's more interesting than Trump. He's more interesting than any of that gang of fools down in Washington right now. Because he is so unapologetic. You know, the rule book that, in fact, Trump used him for a long time.
And they communicated during the campaign.
And what they do with the Get Me Roger Stone thing is they have Roger Stone's rule number 1, number 2, number 3, and there are things like never, ever admit you're wrong. Never.
Right.
It's cutthroat manifesto, in other words.
Yeah.
Every time someone has admitted they're wrong, even with the Me Too movement, what did they do to them? They crucified them.
Well, I agree with you on that. I'm not saying that he's necessarily wrong in that assumption. That if you're gonna maintain a certain equilibrium, you just don't admit to anything.
So maybe Trump is following his direction and doing a good job.
You only have to do that if you have something to hide, Phil.
Not necessarily.
Yes,
people
you do.
accuse you, and you just don't admit
Never
you're wrong.
admit you're wrong, even when you're caught with your pants down. If you got your dick in somebody's mouth,
especially if you're caught with your pants down.
If you got your dick in somebody's mouth, just say, "What dick?" You know, I mean,
he's trying to make that Stormy lady pay for the lawyer fees. That's what I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
$300,000.
Yeah,
You know
she's going to have to dance
special
for
about
that.
Stone?
what?
You know, I think I know what's special about Stone. He's a salesman, and you almost say, well, man, if he was on my side, I might like some of the stuff.
That is true.
I would
He
love
did
to
have
have
to
him
type
on my
it.
side.
There we go. There's a picture of Roger Stone. Yeah, yeah. You know who he has tattooed on his back?
Nixon.
Trump?
Richard Nixon.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Nobody get Nixon
Right?
in there.
Is that one of his prison tattoos?
Right in the small of his back. No, he's had that for years. He's
I
had
remember
that for
hearing
years.
about that from the Young Turks.
They call that a bitch stamp or a tramp stamp. That's what,
No, a tramp stamp is lower.
Nixon stamp.
it's
Nixon,
small
like,
on your back.
some
No,
people
but
have
I'm
Reagan
talking
as an
about
idol. He
up
has
here.
Nixon as an idol.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Alex?
People need to get the Trump stamp on their back. I bet you like that.
Oh, I think he's got Nixon tattooed on his back because he just wants to piss people off. That's what I figure about Roger
yeah.
Stone.
Probably would be interesting.
Hey, Nixon kept me out of the war. I like the guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, whatever.
Well, he did start the EPA.
He did start the
Among other
EPA.
things.
Yeah, started the EPA. He did a couple of good things, you know. Certainly was.
He wasn't so damn paranoid. He would have fulfilled his second term.
Well,
many argue.
the trouble with Nixon was that he always grabbed defeat from the hands of victory. When he was in college, he was supposed to graduate
Kinda
at
like
the top of
DNC.
it, at the top of his class, and he snuck into the dean's office late at night to see where he was going to finish. And they caught him and didn't even let him graduate with the rest of the class. And it turned out he was number one. Okay.
Yeah, it's his paranoia.
So if you take that and you transfer it to say Watergate, it's the same thing. You know, he was going to win, but he had to find out what the Democrats were doing.
He was so brilliant that when the USSR fell, he said that this is an opportunity to bring Russia into to the rest of the world and to help them create capitalism and free economy. And most people said, hey, we don't want to do this because our people in our country are starving, and so therefore, why should we help the Russians? And you know, he was brilliant in that, and that he could see the benefit of doing that, and how it would have been so much better in the long run.
Yeah.
If you know,
he was a globalist to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he wasn't a nationalist.
Trump says that just means he believes in America.
No, that means something else, Phil.
To you.
Trump
Well,
I got
he
a question for the panel.
look it up in the dictionary. He's going to do that. At least I kept him quiet for a couple of minutes. Quick, everybody talk.
Tim wanted to say something.
Yes.
If Trump takes the birthright away retroactively, doesn't that mean most of us would be non-citizens except for the American natives?
No, not even them.
Well, he
But
can't.
you know
He
what?
can't do it. He can't do it.
The
He can't do
14th
it.
Amendment. The 14th
None of us
Amendment-
are here originally. We all were birthright people.
The 14th Amendment doesn't say anything about the parents being illegal. It just says that if you're born here or you're...
Right, but Trump wants to change it so that if you're not born to an American citizen,
But
you're
he
not
feels. But how do you feel
think he can.
about the fact that he feels that by his own executive order he can will this into being, even though it's against the Constitution,
He
Phil?
thinks he can change the interpretation of that amendment, and if he actually did it, he wouldn't be a citizen. Romney wouldn't be a citizen.
Hi, I'm looking
Cruz
at...
wouldn't be a citizen.
I'm looking at it's called dictionary. I just Googled it, and it says nationalist, noun, a person who advocates political independence for a country, adjective, relating to nationalists or nationalism. So
Keep going. There's multiple definitions of nationalism. You
a
have to look up
person
the
with
political definition.
a person with strong patriotic feelings who believes in the superiority of their country over others. All right.
Look up white nationalism.
He didn't say he was a white. He didn't say he was a white nationalist. He said he was a nationalist.
Well, wait a minute. Phil, wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Hold on a second. I'm going to end this debate right now. Phil, he said he was a nationalist, right?
Yeah. I just looked it up.
And what color is he?
Orange.
Well, I guess you're right. He's an orange nationalist.
That's right. He believes in orange Julius's.
How did he manage to get a color going for him that isn't found in nature?
It's spray on tan. But you know the thing is, did you notice his hair is getting a lot shorter?
Oh, it has been for a long time.
Oh no! He's cutting it shorter every day. It's getting.
But he was so worried about the way the propeller redid his hair the other night. He was just people had died. Had they already died in the synagogue? And yet
he almost canceled a rally.
He almost canceled a rally because of his hair. He didn't cancel it because of the
joke
of the Jews that died. He almost canceled it because of his hair.
He's going to need a pick soon to comb that hair, like a comb.
Yeah.
He either needs a comb over or a kofefe or whatever the fuck he said that one time.
You know what the problem with Trump is?
What?
He talks in public like one of us might talk in the locker room to our buddies, where you kind of exaggerate and you're talking big stuff. He does it constantly, though. That's locker room. His mouth is just nothing but locker room talk. Sometimes inappropriate, even though it's done in jest. He does it, and most of the time it's not in jest. But he just is ridiculously exaggerates everything.
Well, he loves
his real personality coming through.
He said they started the stock exchange the day after 9/11.
I think it was closed.
Even Tony knows it was closed. Even Tony knows it was closed
for 5 to 7 days.
Mr. Money Guy doesn't know it was closed.
They opened it for him.
Just for him, probably. Unless he was trading in China, I don't know. You couldn't get into Manhattan. Everything was closed.
Yeah.
Didn't they move the stock exchange to New Jersey right after 9/11?
You know why they opened it the day after, in his mind? Because all the Muslims had to get access to their money so they could party in the streets like he said they did.
No, they try to buy they try to buy him or Bush. What they did was one of the Saudi princes donated, I think it was $10 million, and gave it to Rudy Giuliani. And Rudy Giuliani returned that money. It was a question that I asked him, and he said that it was blood money and he wasn't going to take it. But they used their appearances at the 9/11 site to try to get the Americans to say that they were wrong and cause this themselves. And Giuliani wouldn't stand for that.
Oh, good. He's a principled guy.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people in the House and the Senate that wanted him to keep that money. They said that this is a lot of money, and that they could use it. And so he stood up and said he wasn't going to do it. Wow. He is a principled guy.
Yeah, you've changed my entire opinion about Rudy Giuliani with that. Yeah,
it is Rudy.
Yeah, what a great guy. What a terrific guy.
Hey, talking about great guys.
Yeah, he's the Crypt Keeper and Skeletor.
No, wait a minute. And talking about great guys, we're all in for a big payday, because I heard that the 750 million Powerball or whatever mega was won in Harlem, in West Harlem. Now, Alex, are you holding out on us and not telling us that your ticket hit?
For the Citizens Panel?
Wait a minute. Did we buy one? That was for when? Tonight?
No, a couple days ago.
The
big hit.
The local one. Yeah, the local one.
I don't know if it's local. I thought it was national.
Somebody
won in New York, and somebody won in South Carolina.
Not the Mega Millions. But
well, it was this next one.
Who
down.
knows? We may have won because they only know where it was sold. They don't necessarily know if the person.
Right. Well, did you look at your ticket?
Did the person come forward yet?
Well, you're the person. We figure we're waiting for our
Could
checks.
well be. I'm going to have girlfriend check the numbers tomorrow. She has the tickets and then she never looks at them.
7th on the west side.
She doesn't expect to win.
Huh?
She has every reason to expect
Is
that.
7th Avenue on the west side?
Yeah.
Conditioned
It was West Harlem, they said.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
It's where the ticket was bought.
I think we're west on the. No, I don't know.
5th is the middle, and
okay.
I don't remember which way.
Oh well, then we're on west. We're west.
Okay, so it was in West Harlem that the winning ticket was bought, and I believe it was for $750 million. And
well, wait a minute. No, because it was $750 million, but then it split between two people.
There was 2 people that won, I believe, in South Carolina?
Yeah.
And one, I think, one in Harlem, or the ticket.
Okay, so they know the ticket was sold in Harlem. Has the guy come forward? Is the question? Has the person come forward?
I don't know.
And if
I'm waiting for you to come forward.
Hey, here's a little piece of news maybe you would like to know, because I found this out last night by necessity. A horn on a car, burglar alarm horn, kept going off for 5 solid hours last night. It was like
Battery
water.
didn't go dead?
No. Beep, beep, beep. And then it would stop for like a minute, and then it would start up again. So finally I looked up, what do you do about a car horn going off in your neighborhood? Right?
Cops.
No. What do? You call 911.
Yeah.
So I called 911, and the woman was very nice, and it's the only time I've ever called 911. And she said, let me look, and she checked, and she said, yeah, we've had other complaints too, so we're sending a cop car out right now to take care of it. And then all of a sudden I listened outside, and it stopped. But then it started up again, so I felt relieved, because I didn't want the cops to get there, say, we don't hear anything, and then leave again, you know.
Yeah.
But geez, who lets their alarm go off like that? And then girlfriend said, probably the guy parked his car and lives 3 blocks away.
You know, I have very loud pipes on my motorcycle, and I love setting off car alarms as I drive down the street.
Oh, yes, you do.
Well, you just
like farting in crowded elevators and wait until people can hop that air in.
I can't trust them anymore.
I like farting in crowded elevators and then looking at another guy, you know. Like,
or doing that and saying, "Is that popcorn I smell?"
You heard that joke. Guy farts, and this man and woman are standing there, and he says, "How dare you fart before my wife?" And the guy who farted said, "Geez, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was her turn."
Very, very, very good joke, I guess. You know, I'm
hey,
sure.
Brian.
Yes.
I posted on your Facebook Gabnet Live.
Yeah.
I posted the article about the veterans who are going to be kicked out.
Oh, I just saw it. I just saw the notification. Thank you. Like I said, anything on my page you want to post too, go ahead.
Well, that's what's called a theme song. Thank God it's a theme song. Yeah.
I don't do it often enough anymore, anyhow.
Yeah, and it's a nice theme song, meaning that we're over with here. Unfortunately, I want to thank you, Brian, for having joined us this evening on the Ramble. As I'm stretching it because I'm too few people to say goodbye to and too much time to go. Of course, Tony, thank you. Anthony Magno, you can see there, ladies and gentlemen. Phil Meyer. I'd like to say it's always a pleasure, but not necessarily.
That song means you don't have to go home, but you got to get the fuck out of here.
And Tim, thank you so much for calling and adding some respectful conspiracies on this program. Thank you, all of you. Why don't you, except for Tim, he can't do it, wave goodbye to the folks out there. We'll see you hopefully again tomorrow night. That's our citizen panel for tonight. That's how it works. We just get a bunch of people, and they do a nice job of dealing with us and getting into a whole discussion on the world and the world about us. Anyway, that's it for us tonight. That's all she wrote. We'll see you again tomorrow. The Intersection is next with Jack Bishop, and then that is followed by Connections with the wonderful people down in Florida. That's at 1 o'clock this morning, Eastern Time. And then tomorrow night, Eastern Daylight Time, at 8:30, it's the Franchise MC and our sports show, The Arena, followed by Damian Chaplin. He's here right after that with, he's here with The Exchange. And then we'll be back again tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, same station in life. In the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Please?